No one's required to test for these toxins and to see if there's any residue left in their food. And even if they test, they don't have to do anything about it. They can just put the results in a drawer. So there are companies who have been, for example, in baby food, high arsenic levels in baby food for years, and they don't do anything about it.
I'm going to hit you from the get-go with a question that has been really in the back of my mind.
Go for it.
Are companies required to test for pesticides and heavy metals? Yes or no?
No. I know, right? This is one of the reasons why I started my company is I wanted to find out what was happening behind the curtain because we were seeing this rise in allergies, autism, all kinds of autoimmune problems, and there had to be something going on with the food. And so when I started Zēgo, I started looking around, what's going on? And I realized no one's required to test for these toxins and to see if there's any residue left in their food. And even if they test, they don't have to do anything about it. They can just put the results in a drawer. So there are companies who have been, for example, in baby food, high arsenic levels in baby food for years, and they don't do anything about it.
And okay, so we take the test, I'm the company, we take the test, and all of a sudden, the baby food that I'm manufacturing is high in arsenic. Isn't there a moral obligation? Plus, isn't there a regulatory body going, show us the results before it goes out to the supermarket shelf?
Yes, there is. However, companies are not always very moral. So unfortunately, they mostly don't do anything about it. And sometimes they just don't know what to do about it. I know investors who have come into the food space and they have tested some protein companies and found that they're high in heavy metals. And they've just invested anyway because they know no one will ever find out.
And they still invest.
And they still invest.
And is this, what you're talking about, this angle of the food industry, is this rampant? Is this very much so common across the board?
So it's worse in some sections of the grocery store than in others. So in protein powders, you need to be very careful. In baby foods, you need to be careful. Rice, fruit juices, oats, there's very specific reasons why there's certain toxins in certain foods.
Okay, I get it, I understand. So, and that's really powerful for us to understand because now we at least have some food groups where we go, okay, I know that this might be a food that is on the brink of, there being a problem. There might be heavy metals, there might be too many pesticides. But what do we do with that information then? Like, okay, now you told us the foods to look for at the grocery store. What do we do with that info?
Right, especially because we're busy.
Yeah.
Right? So what the beautiful thing about where we are at this moment in time is that it's so easy for us to advocate for ourselves and for our planet. All you have to do is send a direct message or an email, whatever your favorite way of communicating is, to the brands that you rely on the most and say, hey, I want to see your purity test results. Show me your pesticides, show me your heavy metals. And if they say no, find a brand that says yes.
Okay, so then they say yes. But what if people don't know how to read these results? That's a problem I come across where I have try to get people to advocate for themselves, but then they go, I don't really know how to do the math on this heavy metal to convert this to that. And even if I had that number, is it good?
Right.
How do we start really teaching people or how to advocate for themselves on these tests?
That's a really important question because I don't want people to be burdened thinking that they need to be able to figure out the math because it is complicated. But we certainly know what's higher than something else, right? So if you have 4 cans of soup in front of you, you scan all the QR codes and they all are being transparent. This is my future vision that I want us to get to, right? Yeah, I have $2 to spend on a can of soup and I can look at all of the heavy metal test results and I find the one that's lowest. That's the one that I buy, right? I don't need to know what every single number means, but I certainly know if something is lower than something else.
Right.
And if we start asking companies to do this, the companies will start competing against each other, right? Because they're going to want their purity test results, if consumers are forcing them to expose it, to be lower than the competitors. So they're going to be the ones who are going to monitor that. The consumer doesn't need to be able to know how to convert lead levels into pounds versus parts per million and do all that complicated math.
I see. So how do we as consumers now push companies to get to the place where they go, yes, we want to provide a QR code because our competitor over there on the other side of town is doing that already. We want to be on the cutting edge. How do we start pushing for that?
So the most important thing is to remember that we are the movement. It's not politics, Congress, it's not nonprofits, it's you and me, everybody listening to this podcast, all of our friends and family. We are the movement. all we have to do is tell brands we want it. We need to create the wave of demand. And if companies start to think that they're going to lose market share because other brands are providing transparency and they're not, they're going to start to provide transparency as well. But when you don't provide transparency, that's because your product isn't clean. Right? So you're going to have to clean up your supply chain. You're going to have to reach out to your processors and your farmers and say, hey, I can't buy any more ingredients with you unless they meet these specific standards for these heavy metals and pesticides and such. So that's how you and I and everybody in this room and on this podcast, how we can influence really the health of the earth, not just our families, but the earth in a very short time period.
And it's funny because making those moves and the effect on the food industry, you're right, can be done in like the snap of a finger. So and to understand how powerful we are when it comes to shifting the policies, right?
Right.
And what I always said is like, a shitty food company will do the same until they see all their competitors going the health route. And then they'll go, oh, and now I'll put my money into health. They're just responding to people and how they vote with their dollar, which is pretty wild to me how powerful that is. $1 that you spend on food.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And when you think about how much technology and the podcast world, and we have such an ability and a unique time and place in history where we can communicate so quickly with each other. It's so different than when you look at like lead in paint or asbestos in buildings or cigarettes laced with all these chemicals. It took decades and decades, right, to work on those things. We know about this now in food. We know about these hidden residues. We don't have to wait. We are the change. We can get it now, and it doesn't take that much time on an individual basis, but it does take action, and it takes action now.
Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you about Birch Living. This is a partner we've been working with for quite some time now. Sleep is so important to me, and I'm always excited to talk about Birch on my show. It's a premium mattress in the box company. And they make mattresses and sleep products that are stylish, comfortable, and environmentally conscious. They're organic, non-toxic mattresses. They're made here in the United States. Now, for me, it was super important to choose a mattress that is made with organic and natural materials. You know how much I talk about off-gassing, particularly because we're in the bed all the time and breathing in these fumes, right? So Birch mattress is Green Guard Gold certified. So that means we're avoiding these harmful off-gassing that is made in manufacturing. I've had my Birch mattress now for about 6, maybe even 7 months, and I love it. Here's what I love most. It's breathable. I'm not waking up at night sweating. It's cool, the air is flowing. It's supportive, it relieves pressure points in my body. My partner's sleeping on the bed, I ain't waking up when she's rolling around like a tumbleweed. And no allergens, and it's mildew resistant. And it's made from raw materials sourced straight from nature. So with your Birch mattress, you're gonna get a 100-night sleep trial, along with a 25-year warranty. Now, if it makes you nervous to buy something new and you haven't tried it, you get more than 3 months to make sure that you love it. And if you don't, they're gonna come pick it up for you. You're gonna get a full refund. Best part is Birch will deliver your mattress right to your door, free, within the United States. And it comes rolled up in a box, super easy for you to set up. I love my Birch mattress, and I think you will too. If you're looking for a new bed, check out Birch. You can click the link below or go to birchliving.com/heal-thyself, and you're gonna get $400 off of your mattress plus 2 free pillows. Did you know that the large majority of doctor visits are stress related? Now, many of us are in survival mode and we expect our skins, bodies, and minds to thrive when our body's running on empty. So to change this reality, we really love this new purpose-led California-based hemp CBD brand called Prima. I talked about them before. I had the founder here last year, but they're super dedicated at helping you rise above modern day stress. So every day it's a little bit better than the last, especially when you're healing. And they have a doctor-formulated, clinically validated, high-performance products for the skin, body, and mind. Now, if you're not sure where to start, try Prima's daily CBD capsules that help you relieve stress. Again, here it is. Or if you need to get a restful night's sleep without waking up groggy the next morning, the Sleep Tight will give you one of the best sleeps you've been having in a long, long time. So lucky for us, Prima has been offering us listeners an exclusive limited time 20% off offer with the code HEALTHYSELF. Head to prima.co with the code HEALTHYSELf to receive that limited time 20% off offer and get your relief you deserve so you can feel better every single day. Do you think that companies, let's say there's 100 companies, how many companies are knowingly putting out really crappy, high pesticide, high heavy metal product out there for us? How do you think that it's 100 out of 100? Even if they have the results, are a lot of them going, okay, it's all right, whatever, let's put it out there? I just want to get a feel for what the field looks like right now.
Okay, I can give you some basic ideas around this based on two different categories that we have some more extended information in. So when you look in organic protein powders, plant-based protein powders, there have been a couple of expose reports looking at exactly that.
Including mine.
Yes, exactly. And my memory is that they had about half of them had pretty high levels, and even when they tested years later, they still had them. Also, there was a recent congressional oversight subcommittee hearing where they asked baby food companies to send in their test results. Some of them said no, which I actually expected all of them to say no. Some of them said yes, but what was so strange, Christian, is that some of them who sent them in, when you looked at what we call in the industry their specifications, which means like this is the standard that I will accept, right? Yeah. Zēgo will not accept anything that has glyphosate in it. No measurable glyphosate at all, right? So that's how you set your specifications. Their specifications for things like arsenic and lead were through the roof.
I see.
They were so high. So they were technically meeting their standards, but their numbers were off the chart.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that was probably maybe half of the baby food and fruit juice industry.
And what a shame, because we have pregnant moms told to eat more protein, and they go, okay, I want a plant-based protein, and they're taking that in, and then their baby's born, and then they're giving baby food.
Right, because it passes through.
Yeah, so it's just, that's actually why I really went into the plant-based protein powder, because I was thinking about how important it is to talk, especially about heavy metals, going in through the placenta to the baby that can really predispose the baby to cognitive issues, behavioral issues, deformities. It's
right.
to think about, I'm like, okay, wow. And that's something that people take in every day, right? Like, let's say 1 or 2 scoops a day, especially if you're an active mom, right? You go, right. I'm having a baby, but I want to be in really good shape. And I'm on this protein powder every single day. You know, it was really something that was boggling my mind. This is why I did the whole expose. But I heard you have the scoop on pea protein. And I want to know what the scoop is on this.
Yes. So as you know, the test results that we've seen over the past 5 to 10 years on pea protein have been terrible. Lots of heavy metal residue, especially in the organic ones, which is just sort of mind-boggling. Organic standards don't come with any kind of heavy metal assurance anyway. There is no standard that monitors for heavy metals. But still, we were all very surprised. And people have been trying to figure out, well, what is it? Is that the roots are longer because they're organic and they're soaking up? Well, lo and behold, I was talking to a farmer up in Canada, and he said, oh, no, I know. I can tell you exactly what's happening, Colleen. So we're growing the peas organically in Saskatchewan or wherever they're being grown. But in order to make pea protein, those molecule bonds are so tight between the protein and the carbohydrates that you have to use a harsh chemical to break them apart. That chemical is so toxic that the wastewater was illegal in Canada and the US. So they had to send the peas to China, where they have heavy metals literally floating in the air, in the soil. They're allowed to use them in processing. It's in their water. So the contamination was happening in China when they processed the organic ingredients and then sent them back to us to eat. So that's how we ended up with heavy metals from China in our organic peas that were grown in the US and in Canada.
And that's how it was happening. So organic peas were grown here on this side of the world.
Right.
But why were they being sent to China?
Because the wastewater created from the process of stripping the carbohydrate off the peas so you could make the protein powder, that wastewater was so toxic, it was illegal. You couldn't produce it.
So they were producing it in China instead?
Right.
I see, where the heavy metal laws are much more lenient.
And the wastewater, the chemical contamination of the wastewater, they have a lot more lenient rules around that.
Wow.
So yes, and we didn't know, like you, me, the consumers of these pea proteins didn't know because there was no required disclosure. We didn't even know to ask, right? I would never think to ask that as a consumer. So that's the type of transparency that can change the world for us, right? We as consumers should have a right to know before we buy something and before we eat it if it has that type of residue in it.
And just to think, it's like pea protein. Do you know how many pea protein companies there are now? You go to any, like Whole Foods, Sprouts, Ralph's even, you'll find pea protein there. And it's pretty wild to me that it's so available. And it is the other option, aside from like hemp protein or soy protein, for a plant-based protein option.
And it's in a lot of foods. Pea protein's being used in a lot of foods, plant-based foods, for various reasons. Sometimes not even because it's a protein. Sometimes they're using it as some sort of binder or for some other reason.
Right.
There are better options coming out in pea protein. So the whole industry is, I think, going to be shifting now that this has become in people's consciousness about this toxicity. And they're working on water processing that will split those molecules apart. They're also, how do you process the wastewater in a way that can be safer? But I would question, if you have to use such a violent toxic process to pull apart molecules, did Mother Nature really want us to do that in the first place?
True.
So
True.
Yeah.
I would absolutely question that. I mean, that brings into mind like all of the oils that we use, the seed oils, and the processing is so aggressive.
Right.
And then we go, yes, we have oil and how Mother Nature intended, but not necessarily, you know? Whereas olive oil's process is much more gentle. Avocado oil is much more gentle, you know? But you think about like protein, it's like, or you could just eat peas if you want, you know?
Right, exactly.
Like,
I mean,
that's what I do. I mean, like I'll come back from the gym. Look, I'll have some protein powder, you know, during the day because I'm active, I'm always moving around. But like when I come back from the gym, I'll sit down and I'll have a protein-rich meal, plant-based, like tofu, tempeh, peas, quinoa, you know, and I cycle those and I'm fine. You know what I mean? I feel better knowing that like I'm taking in a whole food like Mother Nature intended.
right. And there are some whole food protein powders out there. You just have to know what you're looking for. So by whole food, I mean it's more like a seed meal, right? Where you're pressing out the oil and you're roasting it and you're grinding it. You're not doing that whole process that I described earlier with the toxins.
So what's the deal then with Sacha Inchi?
Sacha Inchi is such a beautiful seed. So it's a seed that most people are not familiar with. It looks a lot like an almond. And it is considered, it was grown around in Peru, in the ancient areas of Peru, as a food source, as their main food source. It's so high in omega-3s, the raw seed actually smells and tastes like fish.
Wow.
Seriously like fish. So we don't want fish tasting protein. So we squish the oil out when we use it. They use that for medicinal purposes, and it doesn't travel well. That's why you don't see it here in the U.S.
Oh, I see. I've never seen Sacha Inchi oil.
Yeah, you don't. So they use it there for medicinal purposes. A little bit remains in the protein powder, but then you can take then this whole food protein, which is easier for you to digest. You digest like 30% more than a protein isolate, like a pea protein.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy on your stomach. And then you can also get it from their co-ops that work with small organic farms. And you can get it from these small organic farms in Peru.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. And the amino acid profile, is it something that people who work out would want to go for?
Yes, for sure. So if you follow the PDCast, so for everyone who's listening who's a big protein person, that's their digestible protein score. So it would be an 87, which in the plant world is really good, especially when you consider that you're digesting 30% more. Right. If you wanted to boost it up just a little bit, you might add in like a tablespoon of chia seeds with it. Right?
I see.
That's going to complete the protein, and you're going to get 100%, 100 grams out of 100 grams of digestible protein.
Oh, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
I love, that's innovative, right? Because I saw Sacha Inchi by one company, but the nuts, not the powder. And I go, what the hell is this? And I grab it and I eat some and I was like, oh, pretty good, you know? But when I looked at the protein, I was actually surprised that these nuts had so much protein.
Yeah. They have a lot of protein in them.
Yeah.
And they're a great option for people who have food allergies because even though they look like a nut, they're technically a seed. And so a lot of people who have food allergies who can't have other things can actually have Sacha Inchi protein.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, so everyone go check out Sacha Inchi protein. You got it at Zēgo. So
Yeah, we do have it at Zēgo.
I'm going to recommend that. With the current state of our climate, it took me a long time, and I was looking for a way to offset my carbon footprint. And really, it was hard for me to know where to start until my friend told me about Ren. Now, Ren is awesome. They're a startup company that's making it easy for everyone to make a meaningful difference in the climate crisis, which is real. Ren is a website, and it's focused on monthly subscriptions where you, the customer, will calculate your carbon footprint based on your lifestyle, then offset it by supporting awesome climate projects that plant trees, protect rainforests, and remove CO2 from the sky. Now, their goal is to unlock the collective action of millions of individuals to drive the systemic change needed to end climate crisis. So for you, signing up for Ren is an easy way to do something meaningful about the climate crisis. Here's where you can do your part. Ren practices hyper-transparency. You know we love that word on this show. And once you sign up to make a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint, you'll receive monthly updates about the tree planting, rainforest protection, and carbon removal projects that you are funding. So you can see the exact coordinates of the trees that you planted. So check this out. It's going to take all of us to end the climate crisis. So do your part today by signing up for Ren. Go to wren.co/heal-thyself, sign up, and they'll plant 10 extra trees in your name. That's wren.co/heal-thyself to start making a difference. Thank you, Ren, for doing something about the climate crisis and giving us the ability to do our part as well. All right, my God, the last 2 years have been crazy. We never experienced anything like it in our lifetimes. We know that. That's been the conversation we've been having for quite a while now. And we never experienced such an effect on our mental well-being. And we're seeing the downstream effects now. Now, unfortunately, a lot of us have been beaten down by anxiety, stress, and poor sleep due to this uncertainty in the world. Especially a lot of you have opened up and told me that anxiety has been coming out, or poor sleep, or digestive issues, right? And if you're working as a parent, you have extra difficulty of keeping your kids occupied 24/7 while you're trying to work from home. It's not an easy task. So if you're feeling exhausted or burnt out, you're not alone. There are tens of thousands of people in the similar place right now. So the question is, what can we do to enhance our mental wellness and capture that zest for life, right? Now, the one critical thing I advise all people to do, including myself, is take my magnesium. Magnesium Breakthrough from Biooptimizers is my favorite magnesium. I brought it out of the country when I was on my 10-day trip. I was taking it twice a day, particularly for stress and anxiety, but also helping me go to the bathroom. So stress and anxiety will deplete your magnesium levels. We know this. Low magnesium levels contribute to more anxiety. It's a vicious cycle. When you supplement Magnesium Breakthrough, you can break that cycle, because you'll be getting 7 unique forms of organic full-spectrum magnesium for stress relief and better sleep, all in one bottle. So taking Magnesium Breakthrough will help you experience more energy, stronger bones, healthier blood pressure, less irritability. You're gonna have a calmer mood. It's gonna help reduce muscle cramping and fewer migraines. And because it supports mental wellness, Magnesium Breakthrough can help you finally feel like yourself again. So the way that I do it is I take 2 capsules before bed, and I take 2 in the morning, especially when I'm traveling and can be constipated, but also when I'm super stressed. And it's really helpful for my mood and energy levels. For the exclusive Heal Thyself offer, go to www.magbreakthrough.com/DRG and use the code DRG10 during checkout to save 10% and get yourself some free shipping. Part of your background, and we didn't mention this, was in lobbying, right?
Right.
But how did you, because I think it's a really interesting thing to highlight right now, how did you move from your old life to this life where you're kind of kicking down all of the doors and going, hey, policy, we need to change this. Hey, get a QR code over here. Hey, you know there's 400 pesticides in that. When did that shift happen?
So it all has to do with, well, I'm going to tell you the story, because if I tell you the punchline, then the story's not as fun. So we were working with Congress, Michelle Obama's office at the White House on standards to improve school lunches and snack bar foods. And everyone is, 100 people working on this, right? And we get the new legislation through, and we're so excited because it's going to change the whole nation, right? We're improving nutrition for everyone. And we were waiting with bated breath to see what Big Food was going to come out with, because it's all Big Food that sells into the nutrition programs that the federal government spends their money on. And the first product that came out, and I'm not joking, it was a brown Rice Krispie treat. Wow, that we're like, we just spent 3 years working on that bill and a brown rice. So I threw up my hands, and I knew that there was no way that government would ever be the solution, because there was no way big food would ever, they would always get around us, right? The chemical companies will always get around us. There's too much money. And I had also worked in nonprofit, and I knew nonprofit couldn't scale. And at the same time, my kids were struggling with gluten intolerance, dairy intolerance, pre-diabetes. We had autism spectrum in the family, lots of Tourette's. So we were trying to eat really clean and had a restricted diet, but our schools went nut-free because allergies were really on the rise.
Wow.
So I went to look for things that met all of those dietary needs, and it just made me mad. It was like cookies, cakes, candy. There was nothing healthy for people who were following these restricted diets. And these are the people who had autoimmune issues, right? They need the healthiest food, not the worst food. So I decided to found a company that would be based on superfoods. So we were using seed and fruits, and would be accessible to anyone, regardless of the special diet that they have. We would be healthy for them. And then we would purity test so that we could provide them with the assurance that the product was safe. What I didn't know at the time, but I wanted to learn because I knew there was something going on in the food industry, as we were talking about before, was that we were going to be purity testing for heavy metals and pesticides. I thought it was just going to be allergens and gluten, that type of stuff.
Yeah, powerful.
So, yeah, that's how I ended up there.
Isn't it crazy, all that work, and it's a damn brown Rice Krispies treat, and it's like, it just, hearing you say that, it just brought back to mind, like, when I was in school, and the school lunches, and they really haven't changed, other than, I'm sure, even the quality went down since, but it was like, how can young children whose bodies are so susceptible and growing, right? Their brains are growing, they need clean energy, and throughout the day, and they're learning, and we're eating all this crap. It's like, it's so crazy what it does to our blood sugar as kids. No wonder so many kids are running around, dysregulated, and they're diagnosing them as ADHD, right? Or they have a behavioral disorder or a learning disorder. But we're eating crap all day. So to me, it was just like, it just set me on this, like, I remember that. But hearing you say that is like, how you want to make the change is so admirable from this side.
Yeah, and that's a great place for people to exercise their power also, is to go to their school board meetings, or call them, or email. I mean, going to a school board meeting is tough. That's a lot of time, and it's at night. But you can email your school board and tell them that you want cleaner food. But
Will they make the change, though?
They won't if you don't ask.
Okay.
I always say, ask for what you want. You might not get it, but you certainly won't get it if you don't ask.
Yeah.
So we have to start asking, right? And I would push it further and say, we need to start demanding. When we're talking to these brands, and brands are going to be more responsive to you and me and everybody else reaching out than a school board is. I hate to say it, because they're worried about losing their bottom line, right? They want your dollar. And so when we talk about these things, about frustrations with the food system and school lunches and things, we have to change the planet, right? I mean, that's what we're ultimately talking about. We have to nurture the soil, regenerate the soil, get the chemicals out. It's a big task, but really it's very simple for you and me, and we are the change. We just have to start reaching out to brands. I want to see your purity test results. Again, you don't have to know how to read them. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that you asked. The ask is the thing you need to do.
Right. And them as a company going, yes, we are proud to give it to you, proud to show it to you. Look,
exactly.
Really, every single one of our sponsors here has proudly has given certificates to us. People who follow the show have asked, they've given it to them. And I'm like, that's how it should be. They should be proud. Even some of the companies that sponsor the show have it on the website. You can literally click up to date, and it's not just like the constituent that is the main ingredient, right? That they're selling, but also all the other stuff, like even the carrier oils that they'll have. They even test their like MCT oil. I'm thinking of a hemp protein, hemp quality, hemp product. Yeah. But to me, it's like, whoa, like they're the standard. It's not surprising that we're working with them, but it's a standard, and it's how it should be. So for me, what I see is that as it's on the radar, companies are like slowly shifting. They're like slowly like, yes, we plan on. For me, the outlook, at least in the small little niche that I see, is like changing. What do you think?
I agree with you. And because we have some companies who have been willing to do it, this is the time for us as consumers to act and push really hard, right? And what we need is for people not to have you reach out to every single company and pull the information out of them, right? We have a system where we've set up at Zēgo. We test for over 500 different pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals, and we tailor what we test for. We'll add in glyphosate, we add in paraquat for oats, okra toxins for oats, because that can be a problem. Those tests should be tied to the package so the customer in the store can be informed. They don't have to look it up anywhere. So our system of purity verification could be replicated. And what we're planning to do is making a platform available so companies can tap into it and it can be easy for them. So if you, Christian, the company that makes a new superfood product, wants to do this, but you're worried you don't have the time to do that, no problem. It's kind of like a destructed certification. It's not a certification, it's a transparency system so that they can easily do it. That way, companies don't have to do a 9-month certification process for like non-GMO.
Such a barrier to entry.
Right, such a barrier. And how do you have a revolution? How do you save the planet if the certification takes 9 months? In 3 weeks, you could be up on our platform. So
that's how it should be.
That's how you make great change. Change happens quickly, but it only happens with trust. Change happens at the pace of trust, right? Where do we get trust from? Transparency.
True.
Right. So that's what we're looking to enable with our little company, Zēgo.
I love it. And going to move mountains with it. All right, everyone, we got an amazing new sponsor, and I've been taking this electrolyte powder for quite a while. So Element is a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything you need and nothing that you don't. That means lots of salt and no sugar. It contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of magnesium. It contains none of the junk, no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, none of that BS, right? So Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs and is perfectly suited for any lifestyle, whether you're keto, low carb, paleo, vegan. As we know, it's super important to replenish your electrolytes. Now, for me, this is a lifesaver. You know that I do the infrared sauna almost every single day. And what I do is I fill up my water bottle, about 40 to 60 ounces. It's a really big water bottle. And I dump one whole Element. Orange salt is my favorite one. And it's been a lifesaver because when I'm coming out of the sauna, I'm not dehydrated the rest of the day. But also, me coming back from my out-of-the-country trip, I had a whole Ziploc bag full of Element powder because it was a lifesaver, knowing that I'm going to be hydrating myself, especially when I'm flying. So it's a super, super amazing electrolyte drink, easy to take. Electrolytes in general facilitate hundreds of functions in the body, right? Including nerve conduction, hormonal regulation, nutrient absorption, and fluid balance. Element can help prevent and eliminate headaches, muscle cramps, fatigue, sleeplessness, and other common symptoms of electrolyte deficiency. When you sweat, the primary electrolyte that you lose is sodium. When you were a kid, did you ever taste your sweat and it tasted like salt? That's why. Athletes can lose up to 7 grams per day. So when sodium is not replaced, it's common to experience muscle cramps and fatigue. Element is used by all sports, NBA, NFL, NHL players, Olympic athletes, Navy SEALs, to everyday moms and dads and exercise enthusiasts. Everyone needs to replenish their electrolytes, not just athletes. And I felt so much better since implementing Element into my routine. It's helped me limit headaches, fatigue, and really just giving me more energy, especially those days I'm going in the sauna. So right now, Element is offering you listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packs free with any Element order. Now, this is a great way to try all the 8 flavors and share Element with a salty friend. So get yours at DrinkElement, that's lmnt.com/DRG. The deal is only available through my link. You must go to DRINKLMNT.com/DRG. Element offers no question asked refunds. So if you don't like it, you don't like it. It's totally risk-free. But if you do like it, share with a friend and enjoy. Stay salty, my friends. You mentioned some of the toxins in oats. What's the problem with conventional oats? I mean, like, when I was in college, I had a big thing of Quaker oats I would get for, I don't know, $2.99, $3.99 at the time, I don't know. But I would have it for breakfast, and I'd do half a cup, and I'd boil it up, and I'd eat it.
Yeah.
And I never thought about anything else to it. What's the problem with the conventional everyday oats?
It's a great question. So back when you were having it, it might not have been a problem. So don't be worried.
Good.
And I never want people to be worried. I always want them to feel empowered, right? So 20 years ago or so, I'll give you the story that the farmers have given to me. Many oats are grown in Canada. And some of our favorite brands that we've grown up with buy all their oats from farmers in Canada. Well, Canada is cold and can be wet, and you cannot harvest wet oats, right? So sometimes you need to you want to shorten your season because you want to harvest it faster. And that's when they discovered that, we can use Roundup, which has glyphosate in it, in order to speed the harvest and dry out the oats faster so we can harvest it. So then that became sort of a tool, right? Instead of oh no, what's going to happen, became just a tool that you used in control. So it's being used in oats and wheat and spices. They're all using glyphosate as a drying agent so that they can harvest faster and process faster. And that compounds the problem of the glyphosate, right, which is a dangerous pesticide in and of itself, technically an herbicide. When you put it on the ground, say at an orchard, by the time you pick the apple, you can't measure glyphosate in the apple. It still wasn't good that you used it, but you can't. When you spray it on oats before you harvest it, that's only been 2 weeks, right? The glyphosate is very present, and there's a lot of it in there. So that's sort of the number one issue with oats. The second issue on the toxin side is paraquat. So I know you and I both have Parkinson's, relatives who've had Parkinson's. Farm workers who work with paraquat, which is very popular with oats, particularly up north, they have 11 times more likelihood of getting Parkinson's disease if they have the genetic predisposition for it, if they've been spraying paraquat. So those types of things are things that consumers would never know, right? Because how would they ever know that? It's such an insider piece of information. But if we had that transparency, then the growers would have to be more concerned about what they were putting on to their oats in the first place.
Powerful, because you think about how many people have a predisposition to Parkinson's or may not know it, right? Because they might not know the family history. But if we're continuously eating oats over a lifetime, does that raise our risk? And if so, by how much? Which is crazy for me to think about, because it's like oats is an everyday breakfast food, right? For so many people in their head.
Right.
But yeah, over the past few years, I know the industry has become more polluted and diluted. So from this side, okay, I'll take a deep breath. I ate my Quakers a while ago, probably 20 years ago now that I think about it. But
you have a better option now.
I have a better option, right? So I know you're proud of your product, and it's wonderful. Is there anything that's really firing you up right now of where you're headed, or maybe where the industry's headed? Is there anything that you have in your heart that you want to talk about?
Yes, there is. So I feel like there is an electric energy in the room, in our global room right now, around transparency, around the desire to take care of our planet and to really move. But people don't know what direction to move in, right? And we have people who are working very hard in different ways. You know, we have the people working on USDA organic, and then we have people working on real organic, and people working on regenerative organic. Like, everyone's trying to get better and better up here. We need to democratize the movement, Christian. We need the clean food movement to be for everyone. And this is the message, as I've been talking to people, that is really catching on fire, that we don't want a food system where you and I eat really well and everybody else doesn't, right? We want that low-income mom who goes in with a couple dollars to buy a can of soup to be able to buy the cleanest soup and make her purchase matter, because she just told the company by purchasing that, right? So the most important message I want people to hear is that their action matters, and it has to happen now, and they need to do it frequently. It doesn't take a lot of time. You're just reaching out to companies and asking them, can I see your purity test results? Can I see your, and even if they say no, it doesn't matter. You still won. You still influenced it. People have so much power, and you can feel so powerless because we keep hearing all these bad reports. Oh, there's glyphosate in this. Oh, there's, and of course you can go to brands like Zēgo and get glyphosate-free food. You can do that, but we need to change the whole system, right? The whole world, and we need to change it for everybody so that everybody's apple is better. right? And we can do that by democratizing this. So we need to be focusing on transparency. All these other players are very important. There are farmers training farmers on regenerative practices. There's a whole debate going on around hydroponics, and is that really, can you be organic and be hydroponic? Like, all those are really important discussions, but we need the baseline conversation, transparency. If we just start with that and get brands competing against each other to be the best, that's great. Like, they're going to do the work for us, right? So let's use our power to make the change that we want to see.
I love that. And they could put Zēgo right on the shelf and be like, why don't we just be like this company?
You know what? I would love it if my grandchildren say to their friends at school, my mom started that idea of purity verification. And the friends look at them like, no, nobody started that. That's been around forever. Everybody does that. That's what I want. I want it to be so common through the store, I can go out of business.
Wow.
Right? But our goal, Zēgo is a brand that was born out of a mission. If we can go out of business because everybody has pure food now, awesome. I'll go retire in Portugal.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Shoot, I'll be on the next plane over, hanging out in your back house with my feet on the sand.
Right.
I love that. I love to hear that. Okay, so people viewing and listening, how do they find you? Where do they find you?
Yes. So we are nationwide in Sprouts and Tops Market, Hannaford. Some of the Whole Foods have us. If your stores don't have us, ask them. You can find us at ZēgoFoods.com, where you can also sign up to be informed about what's happening with the purity and transparency movement. It's not signing up for our mailing list. It's separate. It's about the movement. So if you want us to be sending you updates and things that you can do, we would love to have people be part of that more formal list working on that. And they can find us on The Swell, of course.
All right.
And I want them to know that we are allergy friendly. So we're top 9 or sometimes top 14 allergy free, purity tested for over 500 different pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals. Plus, we use as little processing as possible. So you're retaining the most nutrition you can that Mother Nature wanted you to get. And I think our best example, which you've covered before, is our oats. 10 grams of protein, more fiber, more iron, simply because we respect Mother Nature and we keep her nutrients whole.
That's how it should be done, man. I want to stand up and testify to this. I love it. Thank you for doing what you do. The world needs more Colleens, but right now we're happy with the one in front of us who is really moving mountains. Keep that energy going, right? We need you. And just be doing what you're doing. You're making big change, big waves, just with the intention.
Thank you. And I can't do it without you. You have such a strong voice, and so many people rely on you for the truth. And thank you for being a truth teller.
Thank you.